Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cinema Savvy. Game of Thrones is finally back. It's been the longest we've ever had to wait. Obviously, we've had a 2-year wait for this one. And I tell you what, Tate, boy, was it good hearing that main theme again when it came
Oh, it
on TV.
was. Oh, it totally was.
And of course, this is important because it's the final season. Like after 8 years, or well, 9, I guess, right, with the 1 year break. After a
Yeah.
very long time, 8 years, I think it is. We are finally here, the final stretch. 6 episodes left, and of course, we're kicking off with episode 1. This is going to be our in-depth review, discussion, speculation series. It's going to be weekly, and we're going to try and keep it at the same time each week. So hopefully, we get some regular viewers. We're going to shoot for 8 p.m. every Tuesday evening if we can. If we can't, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
But this has been a quite popular series on our YouTube channel. There's a lot of Game of Thrones fans out there. I know we usually keep it to movies, but come on. It's Game of Thrones, right? It's essentially a movie in its own right. So, as you can see from the title, we're talking about episode 1, season 8, episode 1, Winterfell. It very much is a first episode, getting you on board with all the characters and where everyone is. But we do have a very specific way that we break down our review of each episode, especially because there's a lot of characters and a lot of stuff to cover. So if you want to let the guys know, watching at home, Tate, how we break up each episode.
Yes. So we usually break down the episodes by starting at the very, very northern point of the map and working our way down. There will be some occasions where we'll generalize a certain area. So, for example, in previous seasons, we've done like the Riverlands, and we've started at the bottom of Riverlands because of chronological order reasons. And then we've gone up all the way to the Vale. In this episode, actually, we do a little bit of a jump slightly back up, just because of timings within the episode and timings within the narrative for what we're going to be going through. So, as with most cases, we will be starting today in Winterfell in the north. This episode is in fact called Winterfell. And there is one thing to note from the very, very start, which is a new opening title sequence.
Yes. Before we talk about that, because I'm glad you brought that up first. I did want to talk about that first. Obvious spoiler warning. We are talking about the entire episode here. We're piecing it apart, so there's no point in watching this if you haven't already seen the episode. We brought this out on a Tuesday, especially for like UK viewers. We thought it'd give you like an extra day to get on board with it. So no excuses, folks. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you would have watched it already. We're going to spoil the hell out of this thing. But yes, to your point on the opening title sequence. It was very welcoming to see. I always love seeing the new title sequences. Usually they just add like a couple of locations in here and there. This was completely revamped from the first frame to the final frame.
Yeah, it was
I absolutely
completely overhauled, and I absolutely loved it. It's really, really nice to see that they're still coming up with these changes towards the end, especially now that we are at the end. I'm glad that it's being updated. I'm glad that it's being renewed, and just it makes it look fresh. It makes it look like it's being looked after and updated, which is really, really cool. I'd say the main things that came forward from these new opening title sequences was the wall is now broken, obviously from the Dragon and the Wolf episode, which was the finale for season 7. Winterfell, you now get a more in-depth look at. You get a more in-depth look at King's Landing as well, which is really cool. And we had our second location that we're going to jump to after we've done through of Winterfell, which is last half, home to House Umber.
I think the opening title sequence is very smart in that, I mean, we're going to talk about the episode in depth. It feels very weird to be talking about a title sequence, but I do think it serves a point in that we know the stakes now in season 8. We know that the Army of Dead is on the move. You get that pretty much every single scene. They're really foreshadowing and building up this imposing threat that is on the way and is constantly marching. But it's nice to get reminded of that in the title sequence as well, you know, where you see that ice trail that's sort of slowly leading down. And I'll be interested to see, actually, if as the episodes go on, we see that ice trail move down. Like maybe in the title sequence, it will get closer to Winterfell. And also at this point, you know, we've kind of cut out a bulk of the characters. A big bunch of the characters are now in one location. You really only have 2 key players here now, in that you have Winterfell and King's Landing. So it makes sense to have those 2 opposing sides just
the ones which are a little bit more in depth. It's also a really, really cool contrast to see. You have the crypts in Winterfell showing the fallen dead, the family members and stuff like that. And then you look at the crypt in King's Landing, which is just a dragon, and it's the different fueling motivations for how they want to win the throne. Cersei wants to do it by killing all of her enemies, making sure that they're dead, focusing on the dragons and everything like that. And with Winterfell, they're focusing on family, they're focusing on their past and the strength from that. So really, really interesting, those two comparisons. Just from the opening title sequence alone, you're able to get that. Shall we move on to our first location, which is Winterfell?
Yes, let's do it. This is probably going to be the bulk of our discussion right now, isn't it? And that a
Yes,
lot
it
goes
is.
down.
Well, in an episode which is titled Winterfell, you'd hope that a lot of the episode did take place in Winterfell.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I was wondering if the entire episode was going to take place in Winterfell at one stage.
Well, I think episode 3 certainly will. Not to spoil it for anyone
sure.
who isn't aware, but that will definitely take up a lot of Winterfell time, I think.
That's going to be the one episode that will at least rival Battle of the Bastards. I almost said brackets then for a second, promoting our own show. What am I doing? But we start off with the Queen's Company arrival. This is Daenerys arriving at Winterfell and kind of presenting herself to the Stark family. It's like Jon basically bringing his girlfriend home to meet the family.
And it's every bit as awkward as a meeting like that usually is.
We get the opening shot of a child running to go and see this parade, this procession going through the streets. You see Arya like standing there as well with a wide smile on her face, seeing all the different characters coming through, seeing all the different people coming through. And one of the very interesting things, which we're probably going to move on to, in fact, we may as well move on to it now, the callbacks that happened to season 1, episode 1.
Yeah, that was a very nice one, I think, to open the episode with. I mean, you've got that kid who's, I think he's kind of an amalgamation, really, of Arya's character and Bran's from episode 1, season 1. I actually did go back and watch the first episode of season 1 to get prepared for this one, in case there were things like this. And I'm really glad that you do have those callbacks. It's a nice coming full circle. It made you feel right at home. It reminded you of the nice equilibrium state of episode 1 before things quickly went to shit in episode 1. But that kid, you've got him like climbing a tree to get higher. It's similar to Bran climbing the wall and looking at King Robert Baratheon's company approaching Winterfell. And also the fact of him like running through the soldiers and being obsessed with like the soldiers and warriors. That is very much akin to Arya's perspective, where she was dressed as a soldier herself, where she had a helmet on, didn't she? And she was watching the troops ride in, and that's when you get like Arya giving a knowing smile, kind of having a kinship with this kid. I really liked that, and you get the music as well. The Ramin Djawadi, I think he's called.
I can't pronounce his name either. Don't worry.
I can't pronounce it. Ramin. We'll call him Ramin. The soundtrack had the similar motifs of that first episode as well, which helped to bring it back together again. And even the locations as well. I mean, we'll get onto it more when we get into the separate characters, but you go to the Godswood again. Just being back in Winterfell, it really did harken back to that first episode, which I thought was a really smart thing to do, considering now we're in the final season.
There was some various different arrivals, which did take. It was almost like Aya was acting out all of our emotions. Her face kind of contorting to various different relationships, reuniting with different people, first impressions with others. She's never met Daenerys before. So it was very interesting to see kind of her face like almost scrunch up when that happened. And then when the dragons come over, everyone else is panicking. She's the only person in wonder to the chaos of it all. You've also got her reactions to seeing the Hound again. I'm not sure if she knew that the Hound was still alive. And that would have been possibly a surprise to her. Seeing Gendry again, you see that there's a small smile to her face, and you still see that she still likes him to some extent. And then we look at the flip side of things with her sister, Sansa. Now, I'm pretty sure we've given Sansa a pretty hard time on this channel for a very difficult time.
We're justified with that, I think.
It's taken a long time to actually see her character develop fully. And it's taken a very long time to almost understand her character to some extent. But now we're at the stage where her character might actually be one of the best developed characters in the show.
Yeah, no,
And
we spoke a little bit before the stream started
yeah,
in like our new shared love for Sansa.
it's all of the trouble and turmoil that she's gone through, the fact that she's able to get that little finger monkey off her back. She is now one of the strongest characters in the show as far as wills are concerned, and she is a definite huge player in the Game of Thrones now. And we all know that Jon acts upon his wills, not upon politics. He acts upon fighting, not upon negotiations, and he just basically blindly trusts most people just to get a common goal set. Sansa is the calculating one. Sansa is the one who you could easily see either sitting behind someone and pulling the strings at this stage, or even running the show herself.
Yeah.
And it's got to the stage, I was going to say, it's got to the stage now where even though Jon is, to most people, still the self-proclaimed king of the North, and people always say that, really Sansa is running the show, and Jon is just the brute that goes with it.
Yeah, and I really liked that dynamic, actually, because going into season 8, people know, if you've been following the show before, you know my reservations towards season 7. It was not my favorite season of Game of Thrones. I was really concerned coming into this episode, especially when you have that opening shot of Daenerys and Jon Snow on horseback, that you're going to have these two like paragons, like unwaveringly good characters, just save the day. Like you've got your absolute good and you've got your absolute evil with the Night's King. And I thought it was going to be a very boring characterization, but we get some deep levels and we get some tensions brewing between Daenerys and Jon, and a lot of other factions as well. Even though we're getting close to that, we all need to unite against this imposing undead army. We're still getting that squabbling and inter-house bickering, which I absolutely loved. And going back to Sansa, we've both discussed that we think that her character did take a while to find her footing. I think especially season 5, when we see that rise of her character at the end of season 4, and then all of a sudden season 5 kind of took her back to how she was, you know, like the scared, set upon girl.
It was almost like a terrible ordeal to fall her back to earth, and it was almost like she finally thought, oh, okay, I'm strong, and then she had to almost understand really how deep and dark you have to go before you can actually become a strong character in the game.
Yeah, and I think she had to go to those places, and especially under the tutelage of Littlefinger as well. Unfortunately, that came to bite Littlefinger.
I'd go ahead and say she actually learned a lot from Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah,
from Ramsay had a horrible time with him, an absolute awful time with him. But her character developed more under Ramsay and the kind of aftermath of that than it did with any other character in the show, including Littlefinger. Littlefinger always made suggestions and she always acted upon those, and she became a strong character because of that. But Ramsay was kind of the ignition to actually cause her to take her own strength and go with it.
Yeah. And we absolutely see that in full force now. She is essentially the matriarch now of the Stark family. She is absolutely calling the shots. She's organizing the houses, food, every little matter. And what I love about this, if we're going to get, I mean, it's almost like a children's cartoon with how we do this show, in that we talk about the moral and the theme of the episode at the very end. I think it's definitely sort of about family and heritage in this one. In that, I mean, when we get to Cersei, we'll talk about her.
This entire episode was about building trust and relationships.
Yeah. Everyone is fighting for their family, and what makes it so interesting and really good writing is that each person is doing it for different reasons. They want the same goal, essentially, but how they're going about it is completely different. I'm really intrigued to see Sansa's journey in this season. And if we're talking about people reuniting as well, we've got a lot of people to talk about in terms of the reuniting. But one of my favorites in the episode, and what was really nice to see, was Tyrion finally meeting up with Sansa again.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so different now. As I said, like, you survive. They both have that shared survival. You know, there's still that uneasiness there. They're still not the best of friends.
Do want to point out that they are still married.
Yeah, technically they are. Yeah.
Which is actually, because of that, we're going to be making so many predictions within these episode reviews. I want to start off by saying my prediction is both these two characters will survive. That's just a straight off the bat. I think Sansa and Tyrion are going to survive. And
do you still ship Sansa and Tyrion, or am I just the only one?
Look, they're not a good couple for each other, and I don't think that love would grow. But I think it'd be the kind of relationship that that Cersei had with Robert. It's for there for political reasons and political reasons only.
Yeah, we need to talk about. Well, I mean, I don't know how weddings work in Westeros because they didn't consummate the marriage, so I
I
don't know if
I
technically the
don't
marriage
think
is annulled.
I don't think there's such a thing as divorces either. I think there's such a thing as sleeping with other people, but not divorces.
Mm.
I,
You might be right. You might be right. I don't. Well, I
I
mean,
think I think the closest thing to a divorce they have in Game of Thrones is being beheaded.
yes. I mean,
Uh,
we can't even ask the rules of marriage now, can we? Now that the High Sparrow went up in flames, so that's kind of rules that one out.
I
Let's
think
talk about another reuniting.
yes. Let's. Which one would you like
We
to go
may
to
as
next?
well talk about Jon Snow's because I mean he met
There's so
his whole
many.
family essentially.
Yeah.
Really, really nice scene where he comes back and the awkward hug with Bran. I think Bran's going to be like a separate section that we need to talk about in this review. He has, as you said before we went live, he has almost become a meme within the series now. And I just love Jon's expression as well. Like he hugs him and then he realizes that he's really weirded out and he kind of just slowly lets go and carries on moving along down the line. I love that. But no, it was really nice to see, and I kept forgetting that. Oh my god, these characters haven't seen each other since
Yeah.
season one, which is absolutely mental. I mean, you've got Arya as well. I will say, I don't know if anyone else pointed this out. I noticed the lack of soundtrack when they reunited. I would have really loved that kind of that
I think the reason
Winterfell
behind that
theme.
was they were looking for just the emotion of the moment to take over, but I think it's too early on in the series to have that. And Game of Thrones has always done very well by even if they played like a slower violin version of the main theme, um, it works as a way of kind of bringing forward the emotions, and it's such a good soundtrack anyway. You could literally play any song from the soundtrack and it will evoke some kind of emotion.
Hmm.
I didn't really notice the music overly in this episode, except for the opening kind of scenes.
Same.
Which is a little bit disappointing, but I'm assuming it's going to come forward more towards the end. It's going to maybe start quiet at the start of the series and just get louder and louder and louder towards the end. I'd say I was actually very disappointed with the reuniting of Jon and Arya. It felt like it could have been more. And in my head, I was thinking Arya will go back to acting like a little kid, and Jon will go back to being the big brother who always looked after him. Arya being really the only person who understood Jon. At this stage in the series, it just felt like two characters hugging, and there wasn't really much emotion that I felt behind it.
I agree, and I think the soundtrack would have fixed that to a point, but also as you just mentioned that, and I've been thinking about it, maybe that's actually a really bold decision because Jon Snow essentially rides back to Winterfell like a conquering hero, bringing this army in, and apparently he just seems like he just assumes that everything is going to be how it was. Everything's going to be normal. Arya is still going to be his little sister. Sansa's still going to be. Everyone's changed. Sansa is like this.
Sansa's fighting back.
Yeah, she's the head of the family. She's the bold one. She's making all of these decisions. She seems very cut off emotionally. Arya's gone through so much shit. Like she can't really have those same childlike relationships as she did when she. I mean, they still have that fondness. They still have that respect. They still hug each other. It's a nice moment, but it's not the same as it was. Bran isn't the same. His family home is not what he remembers it. And I mean, when we get to the very end of the episode where the revelation is finally mentioned to Jon, which we'll talk about later in the episode, even his friendship with Sam is now changed. I'm very excited to see how that plays out in the ensuing episodes.
Yes, that is Lord Tarly to you, by the way, good sir.
Yes, he is now, yeah. Even, and again, Daenerys, like the woman who, I mean, I've hated that whole lovey-dovey thing between Daenerys and Jon. Now he's kind of got crying gamed at the end. Like it's maybe not crying game. Like she doesn't have a dick, but yeah, you get what I mean.
Say, wow, we're watching. What were you watching, Chris? Jesus Christ. But for me, a lot of the reunitings and first impressions that people gave off, I'm loving the kind of on-screen bitchiness that is between Sansa and Daenerys. Really, that was possibly my favorite dynamic of the episode. Seeing those two kind of slyly take digs at each other whilst trying to protect their own people, trying to protect their own needs. I think my favorite quote from the episode is, "What does a dragon eat?" And Daenerys just goes, "Yeah, anything it fucking wants to."
Yeah,
She's like,
yeah.
without the fucking obviously, but like that was kind of her tone of response.
Mm-hmm.
Like
As
it was,
the shade that was constantly thrown between
it was
Sansa and
beautiful.
Daenerys was
It was beautiful.
palpable. I loved it. Like in that one moment when Sansa flashes Daenerys that glance,
Yeah, it's just
because
like,
I have a shared hate for Daenerys as well. I can't stand that character. I was like right on Sansa. Like you're now my favorite character as of season 8. No, I thought that was brilliantly. I thought that was brilliantly acted by Sophie Turner.
and
I love how she
once
played that.
again, also Lady Mormont,
Oh yeah, yeah,
fantastic character. Where did they find her? She's brilliant. Um, I think there is still loads of dialogue for her left in this series, and I'm glad of it.
hmm
She's been the best thing since Series 6, the best new character, at least, other
hmm
than Euron. Um, and I just think the fact that she is probably the toughest person in the room,
hmm
but also the youngest, makes it just absolutely amazing.
It was nice to see that dynamic as well between all the houses of the North as well. In that we forget like Jon Snow was proclaimed king in the
Yeah,
North, and now he's brought this other queen back. That's entirely shook up his entire forces. No one has faith in him
to
anymore.
go along with that, the advisors, you've got Davos and Tyrion negotiating whatever marriage they can. Basically, they're still pulling all the strings, and whether John and Daddy realize it or not, they're not the queen and the king of their various different places. They really are still just puppets in that sense
Mhm.
of they're not in control even slightly of what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean it's always great to see Davos. Like, who doesn't love Davos? I defy anyone to say they don't like Davos as a character.
The Onion
Um,
Knight.
and it's nice to always have those. It reminds me of season 1, right, where you had like Littlefinger and Varys, and to an extent Grandmaster Pycelle as well. You had that behind the scenes kind of characters that everything's playing out, and that was shared by Varys and Tyrion as well around season 5, season 6 kind of time, I think, as well. It's always nice to get that and that sort of like sideline insight. I won't say they had a massive focus, but it was nice to still remind us that they're there and they're observing everything and the foolishness that is transpiring around them. Um,
I've
what?
got two more. I've got two more reunitings
Yes, yeah.
that we got to go through, and they're both to do with Aya. We've got Aya reuniting with the Hound, which is a very, very interesting affair. I thought there would be a little bit more love between them, a
No,
tiny bit,
no,
because
no,
they.
no, no.
Here's the thing: the characters did not get on, but there was always that sense that they were grateful for having each other.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she left him for dead, I thought that the Hound, would respect her for that.
I
Um,
still think it's there to some extent, though. I don't think
yeah,
it's there's still a hatred there,
oh, for sure.
but I don't think that that's going to go away. I'd like to think that by the end of the season they're going to have some kind of mutual respect. Maybe one will save the other on the battlefield when it gets to it. Maybe in
Yeah.
episode 3, who knows? But I like that that was still maintained. I think if there'd have been a sudden like 180 and they were suddenly friends, I think that would have done a disservice to the relationship that was built with them. I like the state that it's in. I find relationships like that fascinating in films where you have these two people. It's like Varys and Littlefinger in season 1
Yeah.
where they hate each other and they're trying to compete against each other, but there's that mutual respect for each other. And I always find that fascinating, kind of like Sherlock and Moriarty, if you will.
Yeah.
I find relationships like that absolutely fascinating. I like that that was still a thing. And I guess the other one is Gendry and Arya, right? Is that the final one we need to
Yes.
talk about?
Yes, it was. I was going to say this is the only kind of meeting which kind of went down exactly how I thought it would. You can still tell that Aya likes Gendry. You can still tell that Gendry likes Aya. And it's it's a really interesting dynamic that after Aya has become this faceless assassin, this complete warrior, a person who can go toe to toe with Brienne of fucking Tarth, and yet she completely melts almost on the spot at seeing the sight of Gendry.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they end up together and she does become a lady, as she said in series 1, she would never do that, or whether they kind of part ways as good friends. I think they're going to get together at the end of the series. I think both of them are surviving, and I reckon both of them will get together.
Yeah. Really quickly before we carry on, is there any way to fix your focus tape, because it's kind of zooming in and zooming out on the camera constantly?
It'll autofocus just as it goes. I think watching the stream, it is focused in, so it's all good.
It kind of like pulls in and out, but yeah, going back to Gendry and Arya, it's nice to see them reunite. I do hope that something becomes of them, if hopefully one of them doesn't die. And I like that Arya is still, that's the one thing that reminds you of old Arya, right? Is that weird flirty relationship both of them had. But I liked that. Very quickly going to Claudia's comment that she's typed, going back to the Hound on this one. Isn't the Hound still in Arya's list? The list is an interesting thing because it seems to be a plot point they've completely neglected and forgot about, and people have been removed off the list.
I think
were originally on the list.
Reference to the list would have been Series 6, so we're 2 seasons now post-list, if that makes sense.
Well, the list had people.
No, she got Walder Frey. She got Walder Frey at the start of last season.
But I mean, on the original list, you had like Ilyn Payne. You had who else did you have? You had the Hound, definitely, and I think that, well, she probably thought she had crossed his name off, but Beric Dondarrion, you had Thoros of Myr, all of these people were on the list, and they just kind of forgot about them. Well, I think Ilyn Payne, I think the actor had cancer for a while. I think he made a full recovery, though, but they just never decided to put him back in the show again for whatever reason. I think it's just going to be something they forgot about, in all honesty, an oversight of the writers, or maybe focusing on other things that are maybe more important. Not that that should be an excuse for neglecting a plot point, though.
Yeah.
So before we go on, I was going to talk about Daenerys a little bit, because she is quite an integral character in this one. As I've said, I hate the character of Daenerys. However, there's one angle to her character that when the writers choose to go in this way, and this is mostly when they write it from an outsider looking in, but we can see it more in her personality in this one. When they write her as that, she could almost become like the Mad King again, where she is mad with power, burning everyone, no mercy or anything like that. When they write her like that, she's a very interesting character, because you are seeing these people who once held her as this champion, as this absolute paragon, this unwavering, nice, respectable queen. And when she's doing all these atrocities, we see it with Sam Tarly as well. This is a guy that hated his father and had a very strained relationship with his brother as well.
Hearing them being burned alive.
Yeah, it's still his dad, you know, it's still his close family that had just had a horrific death. And also when she phrases it as well and says, like, I told them to bend the knee and they didn't. It does show that honorable quality to them as well, and that, you know, that courage in their belief and their house and everything like that, and not submitting to a queen they didn't want to be ruled by. When they write her as a tyrannical character like that, and we're seeing the seeds of that in this episode as well, from Sam's reaction there, from Sansa's uncertainty, from when Daenerys says, you know, like, what do dragons eat? Anything or everything, or whatever they said.
Anything they want.
Yeah, and then when we get to the end as well with Jon, where they say that technically you're the leader.
We're gonna move towards the end of the episode. We have that written down. Sorry,
I was only like talking about it in brief. I'm not going to go into it in depth right now, but I just mean that we are seeing in episode 1, like, I didn't expect it to get straight into this dynamic here, this drama between Jon Snow and Daenerys right from the bat. They're really not wasting time this season. And I really appreciate that they're finally doing that with the character, which makes me interested to see if they are going to follow through with that and build on that as the episodes go on.
For me, I think they will build on the characters. This has always been a character-based show. You've always got character moments which are huge within each episode, and we've always seen it with Daenerys that she does have a darker side. She does have that side which could take over at any point. So who knows?
Right, what are we talking about next?
Next we're talking about Jon riding the dragon.
Right before the stream, I played the Neverending Story theme. It really reminded me of Neverending Story or How to Train Your Dragon. It was a nice bit of spectacle for the episode, although I guess I'm going to get onto this a bit later, but
Yeah.
it's worth talking about it now. When we get to Cersei and we have the Golden Company, and they're like,
Mm.
"Yeah, no, we haven't got elephants." I was just thinking, is it because they pissed away all their CGI budget on this dragon ride with Daenerys and Jon Snow through the snow?
Oh, I'm pretty sure this looked like it would immediately go into a theme park.
Yeah, no, and kind of going off that, Claudia's just commented it reminded me of Avatar. Yeah, no, I can absolutely see that as well.
Yeah, sadly, these characters are not turning blue yet.
it's yes, yeah, that's absolutely right. I don't know. The stuff between Jon Snow and Daenerys is really uninteresting to me. I don't think they have much chemistry, and I know they're not meant to because we get the revelation at the end of the episode. But those two actors, like, I'm sorry, Kit Harington as well. Like Kit Harington's a better actor in my opinion than Emilia Clarke, but these two are just absolute wet blankets every single time they're on
I
screen.
wouldn't discredit their acting too much, but one thing I will say is that I don't really buy the relationship. Give it maybe one more season worth of chemistry.
It happened very quickly, didn't it, in season 7?
With some of the show's relationships, the ones which work out the best and the ones which you actually buy into and believe in. The one that immediately comes to mind for me was, oh my God, I've forgotten his name now, Robb Stark. And who was
Talissa. Talissa, wasn't it, in the show?
Yeah. Honestly, that relationship was really, really well acted out.
Mm-hmm.
You believed it.
Well, they got to know each other as characters, didn't they? As people.
I also completely bought. Like, you saw the chemistry between them all the way through until the end.
Which one was that? Sorry,
Ygritte and Jon.
Yes, no, absolutely. Again, you had that development. They got to know each other as people.
As Jon's rebound, Daenerys is just not. You don't see the chemistry.
No, like, absolutely. Going to another fantasy property with 2 trilogies, you know which one I'm going for, right? Like, a relationship you believe in is Aragorn and Arwen. The Daenerys and Jon one reminds me of Tariel and Killy from the Hobbit trilogy, in that they're 2 people thrown together just because they're hot. There's that physical attraction there, and that's it. There doesn't seem to be a personal connection at any point. So all the scenes with those 2 together I just absolutely dreaded, and this was a scene that did go on for quite a while. As I said, it was nice to get, like, you know, Jon's riding a dragon. I mean, if he rides that into battle, like at the end of the series,
if he rides it into battle,
and the dragon he was riding as well, in particular Rhaegal, the green one, named after his father, that's pretty cool.
Well, that's why I think he has a connection with that dragon.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, did you like Drogon just like casually throwing shade? Like,
no, he wasn't throwing shade. He was. Interested. Nah, man. He was just looking on, just like, yeah, this shit's not good there.
He was like, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, no, I love that. Like, nothing can take away from Sansa's shade that she threw towards Daenerys, but if there's a close second, it would be Drogon with Jon Snow. He was like, you try anything, motherfucker, I'm gonna like burn you alive. I love it.
Yeah, but funny with that revelation, if he does get burnt, and I think I've seen this somewhere before, with the whole Azor Ahai prophecy of Azor Ahai has to like stab the heart of the person he loves and stuff like that, and he'll get a flaming sword and whatever. The prophecy is very long to explain through. But if Daenerys does try and fight it, if Daenerys does become a threat, Jon can't be burnt.
Can he not? He can.
He can't.
He can. Season 1, when he fights the white that comes alive, he grabs a hold of the lantern and throws at it and burns his hand.
Okay, but
unless they've forgotten about that scene, which they most likely will.
Question is, can he be burnt to death?
If he burns his hand from touching a lantern, it's not like Daenerys who can like walk into like a scalding jacuzzi or walk into a funeral fire.
Yeah, no, but she's like pure Targaryen. He's like half Targaryen, so maybe he's like the Hound. He can only get half burnt just on one side.
He's gonna start flipping a coin.
Yeah, but honestly, for me, I don't really buy into the relationship at all. And I think it's possibly the weakest plot point they could have this season, but you know it's going to play out. The question is, and we're going to move on to that Jon finding out the truth scene now, will Jon tell Daenerys? Because I don't think he will.
Oh, I think he's gonna buy his time with it, but I mean, a revelation like that's gonna change things up, right?
Here's the question we all want to know, because as soon as he found that revelation, his immediate thought was, uh, okay, I'm king. Got it. That's blasphemy and stuff like that. My immediately first thought was, wait, did I just fuck my cousin?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, it should go to the that scene from Ace Ventura, right, where he's chewing like all the gum and he's got like the toilet plunger on his mouth and he's like vomiting, taking like a shower and like burning all his clothes.
You just wait for him to just kind of see what his reaction is, and then Jamie shows up and it's just like, it's not a big problem, bro.
No, it'll be the scene from the Ballad of Buster Scruggs where he's like, first time. Oh, see,
Yeah.
actually, that's a good question. Will he tell her? I'm in agreement with Claudia in the comments. I don't think he will, because if he tells her that, then in Daenerys' head, that's going to be, right, this is a new threat. This is another guy who's got a claim. She thinks she's got the only claim at the moment. She knows that Jon Snow has a claim to King in the North, which she'd be happy to grant him.
Technically, no one knows that Gendry has a claim.
Yeah, no, that's a good point as well. Yeah.
Succession, he should be king. At the same time, Daenerys has blood right to be king from past descendants, but at the same time, Jon does as well. So
Jon would outrank Daenerys in that regard, wouldn't he? Because he's Rhaegar's son.
With the current throne, the way it sits with ruling and taking over, technically Gendry is still the rightful king, rightful heir.
Mm-hmm.
But no one knows that.
I mean, if they continue that route with Arya as well, it goes back to Robert Baratheon's thing, right? About I have a son, you have a daughter, we'll join our houses.
Yeah,
that could be pretty cool. But no, I can't wait. Now that this revelation has come out, and we'll talk about the revelation more later, I can't wait to see how that's going to play out with Daenerys and Jon. And as I said, I'm so grateful they've just got it out of the way. Episode 1, not wasting any time. Then again, we only have 6 episodes this season, so they can't really dilly-dally any longer, can they?
And it's very interesting. Bran, who's always sitting in the background in literally every single scene. Seriously, if you watch back the episode, any scene, absolutely any scene, he's sat in the background.
He's watching
even in King's Landing, he is just there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how's it going, guys? Just watching with bucket of popcorn and everything. Just, hey,
he is the Michael Jackson popcorn gif, isn't he? Claudia raises a good point, though. We'll get onto Bran in a second. I'll just round off with this question here. Does Daenerys really not know that only Targaryens can ride the dragons?
Who knows? I mean,
is that established?
Here's the thing: Tyrion walked up to one of the dragons and the dragon was friendly to it. Dragons have been friendly to various other people. I'm not sure if it's a rideable thing, whether they've carried that over from the books or not.
Is that in the books? I mean, it's been years since I've read the books if they can only ride dragons. If that's the case, then maybe she's slow on the uptake there. But if it's just a case of taming a dragon, like dragons were used in fighting pits and used for show, so it's proof that they can be tamed and they can be brought in line. And she's already seen that this dragon's had a bond with Jon Snow anyway. Maybe she is a bit naive not to question it, but maybe she's been her entire life she's been brought up that her entire family had been wiped out apart from her and her brother at the time. So I think it'd be very unlikely that she'd automatically clock on that, oh, there's another son. Let's get on to Bran then.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not going to lie, Bran is a very boring character now. Now that he's funny, he's memeable, but he is quite a boring character.
He will become a less boring character in the next few episodes.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be any sort of big prophecy or anything that he's unleashed yet, has he? I mean, he was pushing for the whole revelation to be told. Here's
the thing. The one thing that he has said, other than you have to tell him now, to Jon will now know that knowledge going into the battle, which will take place, and that's why I don't think he's going to tell Daenerys until after the battle.
We still need to remember as well the three-eyed raven's prophecy that you will fly, Bran.
Whether he might walk into the Night King or the Night King's dragon.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, he's definitely walking into a dragon. I think that's a foregone conclusion.
Well, if Jon can't really ride the dragon properly and control it, if Bran has walked into it and is controlling it, That'd be
Or
cool.
maybe I've always thought this. Maybe Bran can turn the dragon on someone else. Maybe he can either, as you said, turn it on the Night King, or maybe if Daenerys becomes this ruthless leader and wants to overthrow everyone, maybe he can turn the dragon on her. Who knows?
For me, the other big thing that Bran was pointing to in this episode was that he was waiting for an old friend. He was waiting for Jaime. Now, you can see that in two different ways. You can see that as he's waiting for him to arrive. He's waiting for him so they can kind of talk and discuss things, and the effect that'll have on Jaime. Or Jaime is a bigger character than everyone is realizing here, and Jaime will be the one who kills the Night King. This is my big theory that I'm pushing this series.
Now, you've made some bold predictions in the past, Tate. Not all of them come true, but boy, when you land one,
oh yeah,
it's an absolute doozy. So is that going to be, can we get that written in now? Can we get that in the books?
Sure. So my theory is that Jaime, known as Kingslayer his entire life, will slay the Night King. That's a bold statement to say the least, but I think it might be accurate.
Is
The
he
reason
going to
why
stab
is
the Night King in the back?
he has a Valyrian steel sword. Not only that, but just the various different events that have brought back his full redemption. Killing a king for honorable reasons and being called a coward and Kingslayer because of it, being given the nickname that's haunted his entire life, and then being given the opportunity to redeem himself and kill a king who will, everyone sees the destruction that Night King is going to cause. It's interesting to say the least. Who knows whether he'll make it through the battle episode or not. But honestly, I think he's going to be the one who does the damage. I think he's going to be the one who ends it.
I really like that theory, and I like that it's not just in your head. The stereotypical thing to go is, oh, well, clearly Jon Snow's going to kill the Night King, right? The ultimate good guy is going to defeat the ultimate bad guy. But I would quite like it if it is an offshoot character that you don't expect.
Well, we got to look back. We are in the end game now, and because we're in the end game now, and we're in the final 3 episodes.
All right,
we got to look at the characters who were in episode 1, the characters who truly matter. Because at this stage, we've had various different characters who've come forward from different episodes and stuff like that, even from series 1, characters who were introduced midway through season 1, who are not going to be as important as those main characters in the first episodes. I'm talking the Hound, Jaime, I'm talking Tyrion, Cersei, and the Starks. There is no characters more important than those ones in the central area. And I genuinely think that it'll be one of those who does the damage, who actually deals the final blows, and it'll be one of those who sits on the throne at the end. Has to be. It can't be any other character. Oh, and I'm adding Theon into that as well, because I believe in Alfie Allen.
You know, we've talked about doing merch in the past. Like, can we get, is that going to be like some kind of legal trademark we're going to have to get around? Yeah. I want like a little badge or a button that just says I believe in Alfie Allen.
I will make that shirt, and I will go meet Alfie Allen if I've got the resources.
I really like that theory, actually, that Jaime Lannister theory, killing the Night King. I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest. I think, as Claudia's put in the comments as well, I think it's definitely going to be that he kills Cersei. I think they foreshadowed that, didn't they, in previous season? The thing when they're standing on the map and it's like the fingers and the neck. Like, I think they've definitely set that up. And it makes sense, you know. I mean, they came into the wall together. I think she says, you know, we shared a womb together, we belong together. I think it's only fitting that he is the one that finally kills her. Now, if they might do some kind of Romeo and Juliet thing where after that he's lost the love of his life and his character's kind of useless now.
I don't think Cersei's the love of his life anymore.
No, and because of that shift, I think he's going to do that. I don't think he's really going to have any remorse. Or maybe they're just going to have history repeat itself. If Daenerys does get to that point where she's an absolute tyrant, are they going to repeat the whole Mad King thing again and he's going to be the one to kill Daenerys? And this is why it's so cool with the final season, and we still don't know.
In the visions, we have seen dragons flying over King's Landing.
We need to remember back to season 2 as well, where Daenerys went into the House of the Undying, and there's that premonition where she walks into a completely demolished and
notice,
ash-covered.
notice something that she does do. She walks into ash-covered. It's either ash or it's snow, or it's a mixture of the two.
I think it's ash.
And she goes to touch the Iron Throne, but she never quite makes it there. She never actually gets the Iron Throne, so she won't be sitting on top of it in the end. That's one thing that's abundantly clear. Wherever she rules over, whether she dies during this final season, she won't sit on the Iron Throne.
Which I'm very, very thankful for, because that would be a horrific end to the series.
So, that is Winterfell completed. Wow. And
there was a lot, we've almost been going for an hour. There was a lot.
It only took us 45 minutes to complete just Winterfell. So you know how in depth we're going to be going with this season. But it's gonna back off a little bit now, because the last two places there isn't too much to talk about. We're actually going to go a little bit further north now to last half, the home of House Umber.
Yes, so we've got by the way, I know Game of Thrones has had some dark moments, like not dark in terms of content of the show. I'm talking visually dark, where you can barely see the screen. I was staring at the screen like this to try and make sense of what was going on. This was dark, and I had the curtains closed. I could barely see anything on the screen. I don't know if other people have had that problem as well with Game of Thrones.
It was quite visually dark, but I think it worked to its advantage.
Yeah. So we've had Tormund Beric with the ultimate lightsaber sword, which I absolutely love every time that thing kicks off. And they run into Dolorous Edd, so they're at last hearth, and this is the remnants of when the wall came down. Obviously, they're trying to make their way south a little bit to, we're assuming, Winterfell.
They left a message
with the ultimate jump scare in Game of Thrones history. Did it get you? It got me.
It didn't get me.
You. Wow. Okay.
I saw the eyes. And I immediately thought, oh, so there's going to be a jump scare here in a second.
I had my TV on very loud. In fact, I may have had it on full volume, or at least close to it. And because I was staring so intently at the screen, I was leaned in. I was trying to make sense of who the characters were.
Yeah.
And then this horrible, horrific, alien-like screech just erupts from my TV, and I almost jumped out of my seat. It got me. It got me very, very good.
It didn't get me at all, Chris. And you're meant to be the horror fan.
I know. I walked right into that one.
So this really is a message, basically. I'm not sure whether the Night King knows that they have a party that's still behind them, and whether that will come into heavily into the final battle. The fact that there will be some resistance coming from the back, and maybe that's their way into killing the Night King through either distraction, which will kill the entire party, or them trying to fight their way back through to the other side.
There's got to be a plan for them, because I've questioned the fact that Tormund is still alive. They've had two opportunities to kill him. Clearly, we're going to get that Brienne reuniting. But
you either have them dying on the battlefield by sacrificing themselves as distraction, or Winterfell gets taken over because of the Night King moving south. Because I don't think episode 3, seen as Game of Thrones, is all about living versus the dead this season. Episode 3, Night King ain't dying. The heroes are probably going to lose. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, it might be just them chasing them all the way back down the map.
That's what get everyone into King's Landing, and then you have your big tussle in King's Landing. A big castle-like structure like Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. It makes sense.
But for them, really, the message that is sent to them is that they are between the dead and Winterfell. And they can either use that to their advantage, or that could really mean that they can't move fast. They have to move slowly behind. They have to keep their distance.
The fact they were left a message, though, tells me that the White Walkers knew they were still alive anyway. Now, I question this because, I question this in the final shot of season 7, where Tormund and the rest of them somehow survived the wall crumbling down. I know it was only one segment and they probably dived to the side, but even still, that stretched the realms of possibility for me. And then the dead start marching through. I thought their first order of business would be to clear all of the castles and all of the surrounding areas as they march through.
I think they're just going for the major ones. They know that if they take down the major areas, if they take down Winterfell, which I think there's theories online about the first White Walkers being Starks, so that'll be their big target. And of course, Bran the Builder building the wall and everything like that. It will be their first issue and their first port of call to go and take down Winterfell. So I think that's what their main mission is, and last half just so happened to be on the way through. They didn't recruit anyone. Notice loads of like commotion, dead bodies, and shit like that, and they only kept one of them, turned one of them back as a white. All the others were just dead bodies.
We talk about callbacks as well. That was a nice callback to the prologue scene from season 1 as well. That same symbol, which I'm not quite sure if they've explained what that symbol means, or if
it's the stone circle where the Children of the Forest created the first White Walkers.
Of course, that's right. That's right.
So it would have been the first symbol the White Walkers ever saw. So they've kind of taken it as their.
So I'm assuming the White Walkers used that because they knew there was someone behind them, and it's a warning.
I don't know. I don't know if it's always because they knew someone was behind them. Maybe it's just because they're laying down their territory. We've been here. This is what we've conquered. This is what we've taken from it.
It's like a gang spray tag, right? Like they're just sort of like
because they did that.
Walk of graffiti.
They did that in season 2, with the Fist of the First Man.
That's true. Yeah,
and they had no idea that there were people there at the Fist. So, who knows?
That's it for last half, I guess. Then, because that was the final shot. So, the next biggest thing we need to talk about, the thing I'm looking forward to talking about the most, is King's Landing. With my future wife, Lena Headey, Queen Cersei, long may she reign. She probably ain't going to reign for much longer, though, because I know that she's probably going to die in like episode 5 or episode 6 or something.
I think episode 6, maybe even the finale.
I love this. Her opening shot is perfect Cersei, right? Like she's just standing on the crenellations, looking menacing as hell. Love this woman.
What's the character's name?
Qyburn.
Yep, Qyburn literally walking up to her and saying, the dead have broken through the wall, we're all fucked. And she goes, oh, perfect.
She's like, good, Anakin,
good. Can we edit out Cersei of every scene and just replace it with the Emperor's voice?
Yes.
Can there please be a fan edit?
It's either the Emperor or it's like, she's like a Bond villain. Like, you just need to give her like a white cat just to stroke and... It's perfect. She is the evil queen from Snow White now.
Where is
that
Sir
character.
Pounce gone? Where is Sir Pounce
Sir
gone?
Pounce! Oh my god. I think
I'm going to go ahead and say it. They've dropped that thread completely with Sir Pounce.
I know, and that was one of my favorite threads from the book as well. He had 3 cats, and I can't remember what they're called. If you're like a hardcore into the lore of Game of Thrones, you know what it is. Please leave a comment. I know that Sir Pounce was one. He's the only one that anyone cares about, Sir Pounce. Yeah. And then there were 2 other ones, and I can't remember their names. What happened to them? Are they going to come back as White Walkers?
Oh my god, what if they end up on the throne? I'm just saying. Sir Pounce for the Iron Throne, guys. I want to get that hashtag going.
Is this going back to Varys' warning that nothing's ever good, nothing ever lasts? And then Jon Snow goes, you're right. Sir Pounce, I crown you king of the Andals and the first of his name. Sir Pounce. I love it.
We then have the arrival of the Golden Company.
Very anticlimactic.
The lack of elephants. Oh my god. Just Cersei, I know it's very meta. Yeah. I know what they did there. I know exactly what they did there. And it was very tongue-in-cheek the way they went about it. And I did chuckle to myself. But I am a tiny bit disappointed that we don't have.
I am immensely disappointed by this. I mean,
they spent their entire budget probably on episode 3.
Fucking imagine the budget they would have saved if they hadn't have had that dragon ride with Jon Snow and Daenerys. We could have had elephants, damn it! Like the thing is, though.
I think they wanted to sway away from Lord of the Rings.
I was just going to bring that up. I was just about to bring that up. Now, I know the elephants, the Mumakil in Lord of the Rings are, yes, they're elephant-like, but they're way bigger, like they're their own fictional beast. These would have been real elephants, and I don't know the logistics of getting a real elephant into Game of Thrones in battle scenes and everything like that. I don't know if there's some kind of law against that. But I can just imagine the showrunners going like, fuck, man, we can give you dragons and undead zombies, but like elephants, oh no, that's like way too much. We can't do that. I was let down by that, and Cersei's reaction did mirror my own, and I'm sure every single fan's reaction.
At the same time, I'm completely okay because it gave us a really funny scene.
It did.
And we have our first look at Harry Strickland. I actually haven't got to the storylines with him in yet, so I've only really seen a couple of descriptions of him. But I'm assuming you've read through the books. Have you not?
Say the name again, sorry, because it cut out a little
Harry
bit there.
Strickland. Strickland,
Harry Strickland.
leader of the Golden Company.
I read the books in like which season were we up to? Season 3, I think. I read the books around. I was ahead of the books, but I'd finished all the books by about season 3. So forgive me, it's been many, many years, and the books are very long, and there are
And they're very
thousands of
different now.
names. They're so different now.
Yeah, so Harry Strickland is head of the Golden Company. Really, the Golden Company is mercenaries, and only the leader speaks. No one else speaks. They've all had their tongues cut out, and they're like the Unsullied, but white.
The most fitting description I think I've ever heard.
And they all wear gold armor, and they're meant to be the best army in the world, which now Cersei has to hire to protect herself and to protect King's Landing. Come that fight, which should be very interesting, seeing the Unsullied versus the Golden Company, because the Golden Company fight for money. The Unsullied nowadays are fighting for fighting for freedom. They have a little bit better motivations in that case.
Yeah. Can we talk about my favorite character apart from Sansa because of the shade that she threw Daenerys?
Oh, Euron Greyjoy. What a
God.
Joy. What a joy.
Oh, I see what you did there. He is fantastic. I've loved him since the episode he was introduced. The actor himself as well, believe me, is exactly as insane as his character is in Game of Thrones. He's fantastic. And I mean, he finally consummates that relationship with Cersei in this episode, doesn't he?
He has a gift of the gab. I don't think I've seen with any other Game of Thrones character.
Confidence is key. Confidence is key.
The amount of confidence that guy has, the arrogance that he has, and even Cersei says it. You're very arrogant. I like that.
But it's nice to see that Cersei still, she's still obviously she's got him right where she wants him.
Oh, of course. And
in many different positions.
I think she will slit his throat or something. I don't know. She'll lure him in and then kill him. But it's the fact that he thinks that he's on top, and he is this.
Oh, I'm sure he was
very, very arrogant. Oh no, she said he was very interesting. So maybe not.
Finger in the bum. We'll never know. One of the greatest unanswered questions in Game of Thrones history.
But I think this character is finally fully settled. We know exactly where he stands, or lays, or whatever. He is a brilliantly written character, and I wish that we'd seen more of him.
Nice little bit of humanity to Cersei though at the very end, like where he walks past and says, "I'm going to put a prince in your belly," and walks off, and she kind of smirks like, "Oh, get the fuck out of my room." But then we get that flicker of humanity in Cersei, like, "Oh, it'll be nice to have a child again because all of her children have passed on." And
yes,
she can give this mother thing another shot and do it right this time.
The witch or the mage or whatever you're calling her, Mag, from series 4 or 5?
5, I think it was series
5. Prophesized that she would only ever have 3 kids. So that ain't happening. We then move on to the best character in Game of Thrones. Not even that isn't his name. Alfie Allen. Alfie Allen goes and rescues Yara.
Represent.
Absolutely. And that's basically all that happens. I can't really say much about this, but I would have liked to have seen something mirroring the episode where she tries to rescue him from the Dreadfort. But we never get to see anything like that. It would have been really nice to at least seen some comparisons, or at least something that looked similar.
Do you think it was a bit quick? Do you think the plot point of him rescuing her was a bit quick?
I think it's somewhere between having to resolve the plot point, having to move on very quickly, and having to get through all the storylines in time. So, yeah.
We're essentially left with where Yara is going to sail back to the Iron Islands and rule over there while Euron's away. Although she's aware of Theon's fealty, and
I think that's the last time we see Yara. in the series.
Do you think? I think she's going to come back. I think she's going to. I think she's going to have a change of heart. I think she's going to come to her brother's aid. I think she's in the final episode. We're going to see a fleet of ships led by
Or
Yara.
do you think that she's going to?
It's going to summon the forces. I think.
Maybe she goes back to the Iron Islands, and she brings an army back to help fight the dead.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm trying to think of how the whole.
I'd say with the Iron Islanders, they have a good tactic because they've always been raiding towns and kind of pillaging.
Mm-hmm.
That might help against the others, because the others are used to kind of big battles, like fighting maybe people in small packs or just completely bombarding their way through. You have people coming in at the side, taking a few kills and then running away, and then going back in again. What are they going to do about that?
We did see a big shake-up on the Iron Islands in that the people of the Iron Islands they're very flippant with who they follow. They like to be led by someone with brute force. I know they have that whole Kingsmoot thing where they decide on, and it was kind of very much split down the middle until Euron just swayed it at the end and then led a mutiny. I don't know how much of their fleet is with Euron, how many people are left behind. Do they have a fleet still at the Iron Islands? If she can get back and convince them, she might even say that Euron has, where is he now? He's meant to be king of the Iron Islands. He's not here. I'm here. I'm with my people still. He wants to seat himself in King's Landing and be with the Queen. Yeah. If you want to raid somewhere, we're raiding the capital of the fucking world, right? Let's go and pillage and plunder King's Landing. Who's with me? And then they all get in their boats and
that sounds plausible. That sounds very plausible.
I don't think that can't be the last we're going to see Yara. I think it's going to be for a while, but I think she's going to come in last minute, captain like a whole fleet. I do genuinely think, like the last episode, you're going to have fights on the land, the sea, and the air. And I think she's absolutely. Maybe she's even going to have you're going to have Euron versus Yara in the sea. Then you're going to have dragons in the air, and it's going to be mental. King's Landing battle is going to be mental when we get to it.
So the other thing that Theon does is he says that he's going to go north.
Yeah.
He's going to pledge back to his family. I think he's going to go and he's going to cause. He's possibly going to die whilst going back north, but he's going to sacrifice himself for the Starks.
That's going to be a very interesting reuniting as well, because the last time that Theon was in Winterfell, things didn't go as great, but he did have that very close friendship with Sansa, and that they escaped together. And she is the key to Winterfell. So,
when was the last time that Theon saw Jon? Because Jon will not like that.
I don't think Arya will like that either. She's aware of what happened, right?
Yes,
I think they all are. Yeah, so that's good. I don't envy Theon Greyjoy, the character in that scene.
Did Theon see Jon at Castle Black or not?
I can't remember. Genuinely, I can't remember.
There's so much that's happened in this series now. So.
But the Sansa is the key here. If anyone's going to welcome him in, I'm sure it's going to be her. But that is going to be a whole dynamic, and not just them, but the entire houses of the North as well.
Oh, they absolutely goddamn hate him. He might be the most hated man in the North, believe it or not.
More so than Jaime Lannister returning.
More so than probably Ramsay was when he was there. Mm-hmm. But the final thing from this episode, and we wanted to finish on this one in particular, because there's a little bit to speculate about it. It's a little bit more entertaining than talking about the Iron Islanders, who I don't think have a big fan to play. I think Theon does because he was in the first episode. Mm-hmm. But we're going to finish on Bronn. Now, Bronn is one of those characters that has developed throughout time, and you never know which side he's on. And really, I feel like he's always on the side of money.
Yeah.
And he's shown allegiance to Jaime, he's shown allegiance to Tyrion, and no one really else other than that. He's been given this mission by Qyburn to go and get some poetic justice by crossbowing Tyrion, and possibly Jaime as well.
I think it was including Jaime as well, wasn't it? Unofficially, specifically Tyrion, though.
Specifically Tyrion. I think he goes north with. I don't think he even plans on killing them. I think he just takes the money and goes north. And I think because of that, he just joins forces.
Yeah, I agree.
He won't kill them.
Thing is, if you ask me in the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, the first few seasons of Game of Thrones was a series and books essentially where anything could happen. They said that this isn't your typical fairy tale ending with good guys and everything like that, people will betray each other left, right, and center. We saw that with Shay. We've saw it with a number of people. But now we're getting towards the end. I think if Bronn did turn on Tyrion, killed Tyrion, which I don't think is going to happen, or even killed Jaime at this stage, I think that would be irredeemable for Bronn.
Yeah.
And he's been a character that he
We've
has been a
him, but he's
constant.
always been on the wrong side.
Yeah, he's always kind of stayed the same to a point, but he's always remained, he's remained constant, and that's why people love him. He's always the quippy one, he's always got a one-liner for everything, and he does have that really nice, uneasy friendship with Tyrion.
Like, all he wants is a castle, a wife, and a fuck ton of money. Yeah. That's all he's ever wanted.
Can you imagine if at the end, after all this is done, and like Queen Cersei's dead and everything, Jaime and Tyrion just go, yeah, you can have Casterly Rock.
Yeah, that might happen.
Oh my god, can you imagine if they give King's Landing to Bronn?
Or Highgarden, or anywhere like that. He could really.
I could just imagine though, if they give him King's Landing, like the entire building is in flames and ashes, and then Jaime just goes, "You've always wanted a castle. You're welcome."
I reckon if he does get given a castle in the series, he'll be given one of the shitty ones. I don't know why I think he's going to be given one of the shitty ones, but he'll be given possibly the twins to rule over that. He kind of looks almost like a Frey. But I think, and the one thing I want to finish on as far as my quotes for the episode and everything like that, back in one of the earlier seasons, Tyrion says something to Bronn. He says, whatever they're offering, I'll double it. And we always harken back to that. A Lannister always pays their debts. And Bronn's almost tired of hearing that sentence being said to him. A Lannister always pays his debts. A Lannister always pays his debts. I think this is going to be a debt which is paid through loyalty. And I think I think he will be a friend to whoever Lannisters survive, if he does survive through it. And I honestly think that when he goes north, he won't kill anyone. He will join them, and I don't think there's any reason to be afraid of the threat that he poses at this stage.
I agree. I mean, I really hope he doesn't kill anyone, but I think there will be a standoff. I think there'll definitely be a standoff, but I think something will transpire where then all of a sudden he turns and he's on their side. Just to clarify before we finish off, Sheila in the comments, finally, I'm glad you can make it, Sheila. I know you love the Game of Thrones. She puts, hi, Jon saw Theon at Dragonstone, but didn't harm him because of what he did for Sansa. So, yeah, I mean, I completely forgot about that. That's my bad.
Yeah.
But either way, it's still going to be very awkward.
Yeah. One day I'll try and do all of them in one sitting.
When this comes out in Blu-ray, that's going to be an immense marathon.
Can we marathon it? Can we do it all in, what is it? It will be 70. No, it'll be like around 70 hours.
I'd have to do a season per day. I've marathoned a season in a day. Like usually when I get it on Blu-ray, I marathon season 1, 2, 3, 4. I couldn't get past episode 1 in 5. I marathoned 6, and 7 is still in cellophane, wrapped up on my shelf. I haven't even opened 7 and gone back and rewatched 7.
I'll go ahead and say this now. That would be a slog. That would be absolutely the worst thing. So what are we on? Episode 68 right now? So you'd be on like 73, 4 episodes in the end? 73 or 4 episodes, an hour long each. Oh my God. And so the episodes in the final series, they're getting longer. I know that this one's the shortest one of the series so far, but the next one
isn't the finale like an hour and a half?
Episode 3 is an hour and a half. I think the finale is an hour 20 or something like that. So I'll have to look up the episode times.
Yeah.
Again.
Okay, we have a working mouse. Sorry, that was a bit awkward. I couldn't move my mouse around. So I guess that's going to do it. I mean, I think we've pretty much said everything we can on episode 1. We've spoken for a very, very long time on this one, but there was a lot to, get reacquainted with all the characters and the setup and everything. I guess my final thoughts on it, I thought it was a solid first episode. It was probably one of my favorite first episodes in a season. I like that we're constantly getting this character drama, and it wasn't very clear cut good guy, bad guy. There's still a lot of question, even in season 8, which I thought I had the whole thing mapped out, whole thing predicted. And they're constantly throwing these shakeups in there, so it makes for a very entertaining watch. And regardless if you're a book reader, this is the end. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, so it's fun getting your predictions in. And that passes over to you guys as well. Thank you for everyone in the comments who has messaged all the way through this episode today. Let us know some of your predictions. Which things did you like in this episode? Which didn't you like? A few of you have commented that already. And how do you think it's all going to end, related to whichever character, or who do you think is going to get on the throne at the end? If anyone, please do let us know. We will try and be back. I think, as I said at the beginning, we're going to try and keep this a regular time each week if we can. We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. UK time for episode 2, which actually I don't have a title for, so I don't even know what episode 2 is called.
Yeah, we don't know what the episodes are called until I think they're released or a couple of days beforehand.
So I tell you what, though, I have really missed this in the age of TV shows we live in, which is like Netflix, where you can just binge like 10 or 13 episodes. It's
Having
nice to look forward to. Yeah, I miss that with TV shows. It's nice. So yeah, Game of Thrones will be screened for us on Monday. We'll get it watched, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Thank you to everyone in the comments. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.